So Wolve leads off with his Zapdos into the opponent's Alakazam, and I think the Alakazam could do a lot of damage here, and if Zapdos is defensive, he cannot really touch it, so yeah. Wolve has a good answer for the Alakazam in the back, which is called Chansey. Unfortunately, it gets critted right away, but it shouldn't matter that much. It's only 28% and he can easily softball it up later. So he's free to pick one move here. Possible Stealth Rocks are going up here, maybe a Toxic or T-Wave, maybe just a Seismic Toss. He decides to go for the Stealth Rocks, which is pretty cool. Puts him in a good position because his opponent actually has 3 Pokemon who take 25% damage from rocks, which are Dragonite, Zapdos, and Gyarados. And the crucial part is Dragonite loses his multi-scale on rocks, so maybe he wants to defog them away before he switches it in. Also, we don't know the Scissor set yet, which could also be defensive or offensive. And I think we will figure it out in just the next turn. Oh, Pursuit. And Life Orb. That's something new. So it may be Swords Dance plus 3 attacks, Scissor or something like that. Actually, the Pursuit did nothing to Chansey, so he didn't really get value out of this turn. And Zapdos pretty much pressures the entire team of his opponent because he has no ground type. He doesn't even have a electric type resist, so Zapdos could become very, very good in this matchup. Also, the Scissor, of course, cannot touch it. Discharge doing 52%, which is quite a lot. U-turn only doing 20%. So yeah, this Scissor is already chipped up quite a lot, so I don't really know if he can turn it into a weapon, let's say it this way later. And I think BabyRichy just wants to defog here. But his opponent, his Zapdos doesn't have the leftovers, which means he may not be defensive, and maybe he doesn't have the defog, but he could also be Rocky Helmet. Ooh, it's Life Hop Zapdos as well. His team is very, very offensive. But up till now, he struggles a bit against this Chansey, and Wolve gets all the value out of the rocks and the opponent's Life Orb damage, so his Life Orb turns might actually hurt him more than he gets benefit from it, so let's see how he tries to get around this Chansey. Gyarados has no lefties as well, so he will get chipped up quite a lot from the Stealth Rocks as well. So yeah, Zapdos is the obvious answer. Dragon Dance. This Gyarados could actually be quite dangerous, because if it has Life Orb as well, and something like Stone Edge, it could be a real threat, but he goes for the Outrage, which is a pretty uncommon move for a Gyarados. Doesn't really do too much damage, so pretty much also confirms this is physical defensive Zapdos, but that was to be expected from the start, in my opinion. So he goes right back into Zapdos, and the obvious switch would always be Chansey, but he always also would keep his Zapdos at 50% and has to roost up later, so he could put himself into a bad position here if he makes the wrong play. I mean, Wolve, he could put himself into a bad position. But let's see what he decides to go for. So Wolve switches out in the Chansey, which is always the easy play. But BabyRichy predicts it this time and gained some momentum using Volt Switch. Bring in Dragonite, and yeah, as I said earlier, unfortunately he cannot defog away the Stealth Rocks, so Multiscale is broken at this point unless he has some Roost tech or something like that. But we don't see stuff like that too often, so I don't really expect it, to be honest. But for sure Dragonite is able to force out Chansey here. Also because Wolve cannot Toxic or T-Wave it pretty much because he has to predict the Lumberry or keep it in mind. So he doesn't want to give his opponent a free Dragon Dance here. So he brings in Mew, and I think this can live one Outrage, and if he has the Ice Beam he can just take down the Dragonite. So that's quite a solid play. But let's see. Yeah, oh my god, this did a lot. 92%, that's not too bad. Will-O-Wisp, and there's the Lum. So he doesn't have Ice Beam, so most likely the knockoff Taunt Will-O-Wisp Roost set. But I think he loses one Pokemon here to the Dragonite, but what he also does by going for the Will-O-Wisp, he forces the Dragonite into a confusion, which cannot be healed by the Lumberry, obviously. So he's in a good spot here. Having the Mamoswine in the back, he can just Ice Shard. Extreme Speed will never kill at this range. So he's quite comfortable here. And I think Ice Shard is the only play here. Also what we do have to keep in mind, Chansey was his Stealth Rocker. So I think this Mamoswine could be 4 attacks Mamoswine. With either Life Orb, Choice Scarf, or maybe even Choice Band. There's the Clefable here, obvious Ice Shot, he had to go for this play. And I think that's... Judging by the damage, this should be Choice Band. I'm pretty sure about that. So Wolve put himself back into a pretty favorable position here, forcing out the Dragonite, which will be at 50% when it switches in next time. And yeah, of course he lost his Dragon Dance boost. What Wolve also have to keep in mind is the Alakazam on the opponent's team. I think his chance is at like 50%, so yeah, if Chansey gets any lower, maybe this Alakazam could put in a lot of work, but I think Wolve is aware of that. We also saw no Stealth Rocks damage on the Clefable, which means it's Magic Guard, and Wish, which is actually a quite uncommon moveset for a Magic Guard Clefable, because usually you use Wish only on unaware Clefable because it doesn't have the access to the soft boiled, and so.
So DSK, someone actually asked, may he know why Arena Trap and Shadow Tag is bad, and you're pretty good at this stuff.
Arena Trap and Shadow Tag. So let's look at the Pokemon for Shadow Tag. It's only Wobbuffet, if I remember correctly. Let me just look it up. I think it's only Wobbuffet right now. Yeah, only Wobbuffet has access to it in P1. And Wobbuffet is considered Uber because of its massive HP and also the access to counter and mirror codes, if I'm not wrong. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think you can trust me there. Wobbuffet just forces a kill in 90% of the case that it switches in. That's because of its moveset. It has Encore, which locks his opponent into a move. Means he cannot set up, or in case he sets up and you get Encored into a setup move, the user of the Wobbuffet just gets a free switch. Or you get Encored into a attack move and you will die in the next turn because of counter or mirror code. And Wobbuffet has quite an amazing HP stat, so that's most often the case. For Arena Trap, I think in Gen 4 and maybe in Gen 5 as well. I think in Gen 5 it got banned. Let me look up the Pokemon who have access to Arena Trap. Dugtrio is obviously the most prominent user. But what Arena Trap does, it makes actually what most people do not expect. It makes stall very, very strong, because most often when you have a stall team versus a more offensive team, there are certain Pokemon which threaten your stall composition. And Dugtrio is actually an expert in removing those threats by not letting them escape. For example, one of the best stall breakers in the metagame right now is Tyranitar, Choice Banded Tyranitar. And so yeah, you can just sack one of your Pokemon, bring in Dugtrio and revenge kill it. Your opponent can do nothing about it, and it just makes stall a bit stronger than it should be. Also, it limits quite a lot of Pokemon in the metagame. For example, Alakazam, which we see just here on the screen. Dugtrio has Sucker Punch, which would just knock out Alakazam. Stuff like that. It just limits Pokemon to be used, and also making stall stronger than it should be. About Trapinch, Trapinch basically, of course, it's the first evolution stage of Flygon, but it also has a base 100 attack stat already, which is quite a lot. In my opinion, Trapinch doesn't really deserve a ban, but it makes it just easier, and also it's banned for the same reasons as Dugtrio is. It's just less speedy. So I hope I could answer your question. And yeah, let's take a look at the battle. Both teams are down to 3 pokes. And we are actually coming to an end very soon. I think Alakazam just got knocked down to 12%. And this Clefable doesn't have Protect on the same moveset as Wish, which actually costs him a life here. So, should have paid more attention. I don't know what Wolve has in the back here, but Zapdos kills himself with the life orb damage, and all BabyRichy has left is this 12% Alakazam. And let's see what Wolve has to offer here. Okay, Chansey. So Wolve should be pretty safe here and should be able to just win the game here. Yeah, Focus Blast wouldn't even be enough with the crit, and Wolve just wins here. So good game to Wolve and BabyRichy.